So, we're ready. Shall we begin? Hi, everybody, and thanks for coming this evening or this morning, depending on where you are. My name's Gayle Dallaston. I'm the founder of the Shady Lanes project and one of the group leaders of Regen Brisbane.
Hi, I'm Kyungmin. I'm based in South Korea. You can just call me Min. And we recently initiated Yongin Doughnut Economics Coalition, also known as Why Doughnut.
And soon I think we'll be joined by Ed Morrison from the Strategic Doing Institute. Today we're going to be talking about how we're bringing doughnut economics to our regions, building local and global networks around local actions using strategic doing and internet technology. We'll start with a presentation of about 20 minutes, followed by discussion and Q&A. You'll find a document with links to many of the things we mention in the resources tab of this platform. Please feel free to use the chat to introduce yourselves and for questions and comments as we go. If you wish to speak at any time, please just signal by putting your hand up and wait until we call you before you unmute. Okay. So over to you, Min.
Yeah. As I know, this is the last live session of Global Doughnut Day. I know it's very early for some and quite late for others, so it's really wonderful to be here together. And before directly moving on to our slide content, I'd like to share my journey of connecting with Gayle. Why Doughnut was started by 3 people, a translator of doughnut economics into Korean, and an activist and a researcher in doughnut economics, including myself. At first, we felt uncertain about how to get started or where to focus our efforts. That's when we turned to the Deal website, where we could observe various groups practicing and participating in doughnut economics on a local level. There's something a person I truly respect often says: knowledge should act as a verb. As I browsed the Deal website, I was genuinely amazed to see the ideas of doughnut economics taking action in so many places around the world. But the thing is, however, some of these groups had grown large enough to become full organizations. And given our limited resources, we wanted to approach this from a grassroots perspective. And that's when we discovered Regen Brisbane. Regen Brisbane's group page on Deal was linked to their Substack, where they shared who they were and what activities they were engaged in. I didn't even know what Substack was before, but through it, I could learn more about their work and their vision. So for months, I followed their page as if I were reading the fan page of K-pop idol star. And eventually, I gathered the courage to reach out to Gayle and asking if we could meet in Brisbane in August. And learning about Regen Brisbane through their steady documentation gave me the confidence to connect. And this led us to meet in person and eventually to collaborate on an effort that bring us together again, like today.
Okay. I'll just share my slides. Right, so Regen Brisbane started as a small group of people who'd met at various events and talks about sustainability and climate change, but were frustrated that the talk never seemed to lead anywhere. People wanted change, but they don't know how to make it happen. In May 2024, we decided to start Regen Brisbane based on doughnut economics and strategic doing. I'd used strategic doing for some time with the Shady Lanes project. Doughnut Economics provides us with a big overall goal. It tells us where we want to go. Strategic doing is a discipline for managing innovative collaborations with loose networks where nobody can tell anyone else what to do. It helps us work out how to get there. The first thing we did was to define and agree on our group's common purpose. It's a localised version of the Doughnut Economics goal. This is Regen Brisbane's common purpose. It's on the About page of our Substack website and in the footer of our email newsletter. What would it be like if the Greater Brisbane area transitioned to a doughnut economy, staying within the planetary boundaries while meeting the needs of all the people within? What would that future look like? How might we contribute towards making that happen? Our common purpose it's an affirmative question and uses prospection to imagine the better future that we're aiming for. That method of setting a common goal to keep the group working together towards an agreed future is the first step of strategic doing. We chose the language carefully, whereas words like sustainability and regeneration mean different things to different people. Referring to a doughnut economy makes it clear that we are aligned to the Doughnut Economics framework. And contributing to a future means we're playing our part. We're not attempting to solve an overwhelming problem. Nobody, no organisation or sector, no government can tackle the challenges alone. But we can all contribute by doing what is doable and worth doing. We remind ourselves of our common purpose often and can adjust it if things change. It informs our meetings and our choices for activities. If you've ever been in a group and wondered, why are we here or why are we even doing this? The common purpose should answer that question. Now, our businesses and organisations are usually structured as hierarchies, but loose networks and collaboration are the key to change and innovation. In the Shady Lanes project, I use this slide to explain the difference between the councils, which are hierarchical and siloed government organisations who have rules about what people are allowed to do in public space, and the networks of residents who want to plant out the verge in front of their homes. That's what's behind me, that the public space between your front fence and the road. There's a clash of imperatives and responsibilities and operating styles, but we have to learn to work together in order to transform our barren streetscapes into shady, biodiverse, walkable corridors. Neither form of organisation is best. We need both sorts depending on what they're meant to do. A council run like a network would be chaos. You'd never get your bins emptied or anything else done. And we need boundary spanners between the hierarchies and networks who can link the different ways of operating and form the good relationships or chains of relationships and trust needed to form innovative collaborations. This diagram shows the extremes. There can also be small networks and boundary spanners within hierarchical organisations, and some community groups can be very hierarchical in nature. The green area on the diagram is where innovation happens, with diverse people who can bridge the gaps between the different sorts of organisations and find innovative and creative solutions that neither type of organisation could do alone. The structure that you choose for your business or your organisation or your project affects the way that you operate and what you and others can expect of your group. So Regen Brisbane was created intentionally as a network, or at best a virtual organisation, because we want to be innovative and create change in our region. Some members of our group are boundary spanners with connections in diverse organisations and several different disciplines. Strategic doing is that proven methodology for managing these loose networks for innovation and change, and so is a vital part of our toolkit. The internet is another vital part of our toolkit. It supports and reflects our network and our local actions. We meet on Zoom and talk on Substack. Substack is our shared space where we record our activities and plans. There's a website with an inbuilt email newsletter for members and open to the public. Substack's a new distributed model for social media where creators own their content and subscribers. It's very different to what we usually talk about as social media, like the Facebooks and the X's. There's no advertising and no profiling of readers, but that's another story. But we do use some social media like LinkedIn and Facebook to create signposts into our group. Also, instead of producing everything ourselves, we can just link off to existing resources like government reports on sustainable development in our region, the Deal website, the existing Shady Lanes project resources on running groups, and other local websites. The internet is also what allows us to have the global connections. For anyone interested in doughnut economics, the Deal website is a key part of that. And if you remember Min's story about how Regen Brisbane and why Doughnut connected, the red lines on this slide show the connecting triangle, where she went to the Deal website, found us, and then we made that connection. That was only possible because we had signposts on the Deal website and the Substack posts and the email newsletter that she could follow and then find out more about who we are and how we operate. So the Regen Brisbane Substack is a bit like creating an open window into our working group rather than having a big static billboard or report or website. This aligns with the strategic doing way of doing things. Their rule 3 is uncover hidden assets, and rule 4, linking and leveraging our assets. And if you think back to the slide on hierarchies and networks, Min and I are natural boundary spanners, making those connections between different groups. Oops, sorry. Now, this diagram could be a snapshot of our technology website, or it could be a diagram of our people network. The technology and the people network should reflect and support each other. And the maps of innovative networks like this are difficult because they're always evolving and with new parts added, other parts changing or dropping off. They also look different on what you choose as your central focus. In the centre of this snapshot is Regen Brisbane. It's surrounded by other people, other groups and networks, and through them, the Brisbane City Council, the Shady Lanes project, and the community. So when Brisbane City Council came to us to see if there was enough community interest to set up a volunteer bush care group to look after some land near platypus habitat at a local creek, we could just pull the pieces together through these extended interlinking networks very quickly. Within a few weeks, we had for them out some group leaders, enough volunteers, a Substack up and running, and an email newsletter to show them that it was a viable proposition. So, loose connecting networks in boundary spanners to connect all the sectors, including government and business, mean you can be nimble enough to grasp these unexpected opportunities. You have everything in place ready, and then when the opportunity comes along, you can just run with it. Links to some of the entities shown in this slide are in that resources document. another key part of strategic doing is that you start with what you've got. You identify your existing assets, including hidden assets of your members that they're willing and able to share. And then you combine those assets to create more opportunities. We don't have any funding and we don't seek any funding. So these are our assets and opportunities we started with. Each member's knowledge and skills and extended networks and connections. We use Substack, which is free. We used my Zoom account, so we didn't have to pay for another one. We used existing government reports on sustainable housing, transport and development, and the Deal website. We also had an opportunity on the horizon with a major sustainability event run by the Brisbane City Council coming up in late May. The members of our network had a stall booked there, so it was already in place. We joined in with this event where the stall was already organised within our group and our network. We printed some and laminated some posters off the Deal website, put them on A-frames belonging to one of the members, and Regen Brisbane was launched to the Brisbane community. No cost, very little effort. Another principle of strategic doing is you have a lot of small wins that you then leverage to maintain momentum. So we shared the photos of this event on our website, newsletter and social media to maximise the value from that activity and to create more signposts back into the group. Now, Regen Brisbane's got no physical base to meet. So for our Global Doughnut Days in-person event, we collaborated with those same groups who have access to a library room and provide catering and additional promotion to their members. So hooking into those other networks is how we get to do a lot more with a lot less. So Min will now talk about Why Doughnut and the different resources they had to start with.
This is what we've got at Why Doughnut. And many people tend to focus on what they like rather than what they already have. So often feel discouraged by the absence of resources like funding or a good location. And we are no different as well. So Why Doughnut is a grassroots group with limited resources. That's why we focus on what we do have and start with small, achievable actions. And one of our most valuable assets, and the one I'd like to introduce, is our library, the Nottingham Library. Although it was originally built as a private library, it operates as a public library, offering all its services for free. So thanks to this, we can gather at the library whenever needed, and even without funding, and make full use of the library resources. An online session with Nottingham Library was held as well. So if you are interested in, you can watch the recorded version. And next, please.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. And you can see like, this is our network, and using Nottingham Library as our base, Why Doughnut has been able to meet various people and network that have been additional assets for us. We connect this network with Why Doughnut's activities, using them to expand our work in Doughnut economics. One example is Doughnut Board Game Development Group. I think Doughnut Board Game Developer, he's in here now. And this group was formed around him, a board game developer, with the goal of introducing Doughnut economics in a fun and engaging way. And Doughnut board game we developed can be viewed in the Nottingham Library Online session recording as well. And another example is Nottingham Makers. This is a makers movement network based at Nottingham Library that has gone beyond zero energy initiative to focus on energy harvesting activities. And at the local Global Doughnut Day event on last Sunday, like October 27th, we hosted a doughnut cushion making activity using leftover fabric scraps to reflect on the past year's efforts. And lastly, there is Yongin Climate Action, a network consisting of various organizations, including library and disabled welfare center and church and cooperatives and like village network and makers group and school. And this network is dedicated to monitoring environmental policies and organizing community activities like eco runs and building solidarity with national network to address their climate crisis. And just by connecting all these grassroots resources, we practice donut economics and work towards like creating a regenerative and redistributed local community. And additional information about like library and our network will be available in a PDF resource as well. And also you can find it on our Substack page. Yes. And you can go ahead, Gayle.
So even though we start off with very different, we use the same principles of start with what you've got. We start with very, very different resources. That's the importance of localization. You know, you can't copy one way somebody, you know, the practices of one group to another. It depends on what their local area is, what networks they can hook into, and what their resources are. Sorry. So back at Regen Brisbane, remembering we don't have a wonderful library like that to hook into to meet at and do almost everything on the internet because it's such a big spread out city. We decided that because we face such huge problems in our region, that our best strategy at this stage was to contribute towards improving the public discourse that is at best siloed and at worst fed by mainstream media dramas, populist politicians, and adversarial political lobbying. So to do that, we decided to create articles online and conversations about current issues in a better, more nuanced way, and show how we could view many issues through a donut economics framework. Is to pull ourselves away from that environment versus jobs political sort of thing that we get so often in the media and that stops any action happening. So while the internet provided the tools, it meant us learning all the skills and developing the model. It means learning to use the internet more as a dance floor than a one-way platform to shout into the ether. So our first project was for each of us to set up our public profiles on Deal and Substack, and then get familiar with Substack by publishing something, read each other's posts, and making comments. The reason we use Substack is because it enables that distributed model of publishing in which each of us can maintain our production as our own asset rather than simply giving away or selling our labour to a central organisation. The connections we create between these posts with links and comments is part of the dance. That's the ongoing negotiation that requires curiosity and generosity, which in turn increases the value and opportunity for everyone. That's the abundance rather than the extractive mindset. And these were the outcomes of that exercise. In strategic doing terms, it would be a Pathfinder project. So by doing this, we created a lot more signposts to the group, signposts on the Deal website, signposts from people reading our articles, all coming back into the group. We showed each other our level of commitment. We got to know each other better. We built trust and relationships within the group, which is vital for forming collaborations. And we all learned a lot more about donut economics. The next thing we did was to choose topical themes to connect abstract ideas and theories to everyday concerns that were being discussed in the media, in mainstream society, and as election issues. So we've done two now. The first was public transport and the 50-cent fare trial. The next was rethinking housing, affordability and sustainability. The next one we're doing is on health. So some of us wrote articles, which we then published on our own Substacks. Then we created a single Regen Brisbane combined article that connects them all within a Doughnut Economics framework and asks the sort of questions that inspire creative thinking about that better future. That aligns with our group shared purpose that we mentioned way back in slide 1. What would it be like if the Greater Brisbane area transitioned to the Doughnut economy, staying within the planetary boundaries or meeting the needs of all the people within? What would that future look like? How might we contribute to making that happen? So all of these local issues feed into that. And Min has also been part of this, even though Min is in South Korea and we're in Brisbane. So for the first one on public transport, she wrote an article for us based on her experience visiting Brisbane, where she had to find ways to get around a car-dependent, low-density city with very patchy public transport. And for the second, showing how our respective cultures place very different values on different types of housing. So that it adds to the diversity of views that feed into really complex problems. Now, all of us have the task of reading and making comments on each other's posts. Comments are what turns articles into conversations. If change happens one conversation at a time, this is a key part of what we're trying to do. Now, when we started this project, we could never have predicted Min's contribution or planned to find someone from another country to give a visitor's viewpoint. The loose incremental planning that strategic doings allows means that you can adapt and include new assets and opportunities as they arise, while staying true to your shared purpose. It also illustrates how global connections can broaden and enrich your local actions and how we can all learn from each other. So through this activity, we've increased our collaboration skills, we've increased our internet communication and writing skills, we've developed our ideas on how Doughnut economics could be a good framework to bring people together to transform our region. We've all created both individual and Regen Brisbane enduring assets with our Substacks. We've created a sense of momentum and activity to attract more people to join in. And most importantly, we've increased the trust and relationships within the group that's so important to go on to do more together with creative and innovative collaborations. So this has just been 5 months since we started, but we think we've made a lot of progress so far. I'll just stop sharing. So the experience developing our groups has shown us how global connections can really broaden and enrich our local actions, and how we can all learn from each other and do things together that we could never do alone. And this session, which has been a really creative collaboration across 4 time zones, Min in South Korea and Ed's in America, and I'm in Australia, the deal team in the UK, shows the power of the global connections and the internet to help make all that happen. So what do you think? Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yes, I work closely with Ed on a bunch of things, and I'm in Pretoria in South Africa, and it is 15 minutes past midnight for me, but I really wanted to join and listen because I had the question and I didn't give it much thought. so you did my thinking for me in terms of how you bring strategic doing and the donut economics disciplines together. And no, I think what you've done is absolutely outstanding and wonderful. It just shows you what can be done if you really apply your mind to it. And I would not on this call, but I would be interested to connect and explore further. To record this as a case study, because I think it'll be very useful for many others. The whole I got to Ed and to Doug Smith. I don't know if you've met Doug, because in what I've been doing, my background is finance. There's so much talking, but there is no doing. And much of what I've listened to today on the whole donut day as it is, I really feel very strongly that many other groups could benefit from your experience by combining the two. It's a natural fit and a must fit, I believe. I mean, I just strongly feel that. So. The only question I have is, and I should just add that I had some challenges connecting today, and Ed may have the same challenges. So where you mentioned that the presentation and is available somewhere, but I didn't get where it is available. Yeah. It's not in the chat or the.
Okay, I can put some links in the chat in a moment. The Deal platform will have this recording, and
yes,
there is a document on there with a link, a resource document with links to a lot of the things we mentioned. That's going to be online for a month, and then I think they're going to turn it into stories. But we've also got this on our own Substacks and websites, and I'll put actually, Min, could you put the Substack links in the chat, please? Because I can't do two things at once.
I'll do
it. So what we've actually done is created on our Substacks, which is it's like using looking at a website, but it's got the inbuilt newsletter and other things. Is we've created these slides. We put each slide with a bit of the transcript below, and people can ask questions and comment there. And what I've done very much with Regen Brisbane was make it very open, sort of showed what we're doing while we're working, which is what Min found. So she could, put up every time we have 2 weekly meetings, and so we put up what we've decided to do for the next one. So it's not like a polished website, which what most people do. It's more of look into our windows, see what we're doing. So following what we're doing is one way of doing it, and you can connect with us through that. I mean, case studies almost freeze things at a certain time, and we're about to move on to our next project, and now we've sort of got this one working. We're thinking, what's the next thing we're going to do? And so watching what each other do is really important, but also understanding where the strategic doing concepts translate differently. So, the start with what you've got, showing how the two different groups did very different things because they started with different assets.
Yes.
So I think having those combinations is really good. And So the more of these we can have, the better. And the internet lets us all link together and talk about it. So I've got a lot of resources on the Shady Lanes project about this. I mean, I came across Ed because what I wanted, place is very important. And I recognise this place in front of our houses, like what I've got behind me. It's a public place that doesn't belong to anyone. It's the commons, which means there's a lot of friction, but also a lot of opportunity to learn to collaborate. And my view is if we can learn to collaborate on greening our streets, then we can use those same skills to collaborate on just about anything. And that's when I came across Ed, because I could see what we could do, but I couldn't, again, work out how to make it happen. I couldn't work out how to get people working together. And that's the thing that strategic doing brings into doughnut economics and why they fit together so well.
Yes, and as you say, you can apply, if you can learn how to do it, you can apply it to just about anything. We are engaging, for example, in the whole bioregional movement, and there's all kinds of developments that's taking place, in terms of regenerating bioregions and so on. And the touch points with doughnut economics, not so much in the theory behind, is everybody is facing the same challenge, and that's how to really mobilize at the local level, at the micro level, and that is, and there's all many different ways of doing it. But I've yet to come across any way of doing it that can actually deliver the same results or the level of results that strategic doing can do for you. So it's a case of connecting and as you've now repeatedly said, learning from each other as you go and as you do, and that is and that's it's alive in the moment, and every day there's something new to learn, or there's another way of doing, or which is what strategic doing is doing. It's iterative, and it's what worked yesterday may not work tomorrow, and what's working tomorrow may be working. You have to adapt to work differently the day after to tomorrow. So yes, I agree. A case study is actually sterile and it dates very quickly. So it's really to figure out how to bring people together even within the doughnut economics world and beyond the doughnut economics world, to co-learn or to co-create this networking and awareness of what everyone is doing, so that we collectively are learning.
Yeah, I think you've sort of got to do two things at the same time. You've got to create those local doable projects that people can see that are relevant to them, which can be things like planting out your streets or writing those articles on our particular issues, and not everyone will do it, but you've got to have people within your group who can then join the dots for people, show how this local action is actually relates to much bigger things, bigger issues, wider issues, and even going across countries. That's where your boundary spanners are very important. I think the people who can sort of draw those connections and connect people and connect groups. So
yes, and sorry.
No, it's okay, carry on.
And there is Ed. How are you doing, Ed?
Hello.
We're just discussing after the presentation, how to share what Gayle has and Min has been learning to incorporate strategic doing and, the donut economics, how to actually spread the word on how to actually do it. So, and I may just want to add one last comment, and then I'll shut up and hand it over to whoever is next. If you, from a finance point of view, with many of these groups, they are not finance ready, which means they're not packaged as a package of projects that you can relate to somebody that's going to fund you, that this is what you are going to fund, and this is how we're going to go about to actually implement and so on and so on. So in the way that you're approaching it, you're actually building a portfolio of projects, small as it may be, or larger as it doesn't matter. But you're building the portfolio, and as you're building the portfolio, you become financeable in one form or another. But I will thank you very much for the presentation, and I'm listen further with interest.
Yeah. On the topic of funding, I'm very wary of funding. Because as soon as you take funding, that shapes what you do, it affects what you do. And I found this, with the Shady Lanes project, I'm providing the ideas and methods, but I'm not seeking any funding because I need that flexibility. But what it means is I can work with other people so they can do a funded project. And we had one where they got some funding in a community to do a project where they had supported employment doing some of the work. So it was, again, you pull in that network of existing organisations who are often hierarchical organisations because they're the ones who can get the funding, and they do part of the work, but the real innovation comes from your loose networks outside of that. And so even with Regen Brisbane, I don't see us ever applying for funding, but people will meet through it, will come up with ideas, and that will help someone else do a funded project. And then sometimes our resources can be in-kind support for their project, which helps their funding. So it's a matter of, when you think of that like a virtual organisation, it's working out who's going to be the funded body that does a particular project, where's the innovation, the ideas are going to come from. They don't have to be part of the same organisation, formal organisation, just part of that same network.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good model until we, at some point, you would hope that, I think of a lot of these projects as civic infrastructure, kind of the type of, the same kind of infrastructure we needed, in the industrial age to, water systems, and we need knowledge platforms, and we need the ability to fund those, and that the return on those platforms is actually, financial return on those platforms is actually enormous, can be enormous. And so because the actual cost of convening and bringing people together and all of that is trivial. I mean, it's really small, and the impact can be great. So, at least here in the States, I'd like to see us redirect to some soft funding that would support the development of these networks, and not outcome-based funding in that sense. Not okay, I'm going to give you this money for this period of time.
Yes.
A couple of projects I've worked on. Obviously, the project in Oklahoma City has been going for 30 years. And that's a really good example of a platform that's actually based in the Chamber of Commerce, but it has enormous impacts across the community. And then another is a biomedical research foundation that's supported by a very small sales tax, that generates enough money to to provide the infrastructure, you know, and the return on that is huge as well. So the citizens just in this community just voted to extend that tax for another 40 years. You know, so I do think starting out, you're very, very wise to do it. But if we could educate our civic leaders, our political leaders on that this is a new kind of infrastructure. It's you know, it's a very high leverage infrastructure.
Yeah,
that would be
I think the funding is there, and it's finding ways for them to fit it in with what they do, and often you'll benefit from that. You know, you don't actually have to receive the funding yourself, but you'll be sort of hooked into that somehow, and also, I mean, I think one of the big traps with these things is you put a lot of effort into an organisation. I see this with some of the regen groups and a lot of environmental groups. They have volunteers who put in so much work, and that's gone. Whereas the way we're doing it is that we're actually putting in very little ourselves, and we're keeping the ownership of what we do. It's it's something the internet makes possible. When Substack came along, I was delighted, because before that, with Shady Lanes, I was thinking I was going to have to help people, you know, do their own websites, do that sort of stuff. But it's taken away that, because they've built a model which is, they built it for writers to bypass that sort of centralized publishing thing, so writers could go direct to their readers and make money out of it. So they have that model, and we're just hooking into that model and using what they do. So
Substack model, that you volunteered to educate me on this, so I would really, I would be you know, I think I have an account there.
You do,
anyway,
yeah.
But I haven't ever used it.
It's I mean, it's not a new way of doing business, really. But instead of thinking of it as you get the funding to do this activity that you want to do, it's, you know, funding is available to create something else, which in turn lets you do what you want to do. It doesn't have to be a direct line.
Well, you know, again, I think these different funding models are very exciting, because again, I think the results that we've seen, very high level, when you take assets that are underutilized or disconnected or fragmented, and you pull them together toward measurable outcomes that people can agree on, then the actual productivity of those assets goes way up, and that's exciting to see.
That's right. And the assets are not expended. The assets actually increase with use. I think that's a way of thinking. A big part of the deal and Doughnut Economics is finding those new models, new business models, new organisation models, and which I think is quite exciting. And you know, my background means I've been part of new models in the online world, where people would have to come together and collaborate in the business world, which has all the same, you know, same requirements of trust, which disappears overnight if people aren't trustworthy. So you know, but only by coming together can they do things that they can't do alone. They realize they need each other.
Yeah, I think this is you know, it's the doctorate I earned at the University of Sunshine Coast is in economics. And this is a field of economics that is started in the 90s, really, with complexity economics, and arguably in the 80s with evolutionary economics. But the idea that knowledge assets, or the assets we typically use, generate increasing returns, this just knocks all of the economic models on their head. And of course, resource-based economics is still there. I mean, you know, there are diminishing returns and all of that, but increasingly value is embedded in the knowledge that we that we embed in the resources in the resources we use. I mean, just look at the electric vehicle market, for example. You know, the value of that is, excuse me, the value of an electric vehicle is increased by the networks that you connect into and the knowledge that you can generate and all of that. So it becomes quite an exciting new field. And I think the solutions are going to be done as you are going to, or we're going to find these solutions at a regional and local level, not going to be at a national level. And it's our job to find those promising ideas.
Mm.
Excuse me.
Yeah, and that's where the global connections come in, because within all of our local solutions, there's got to be some people there who are connected globally, who will look at what else is happening, who will often do things together. I mean, it's been really interesting with Min and I, that connection between South Korea and Brisbane, and how it has, I think we've both gained a lot out of it. We've both groups have gained a lot, and but personally both Min and I have both learned a lot as well, I think. And unless you have people who reach across and make those connections, then you lose out on that.
Yeah, I'll share with you one thing that happened on Monday this week. It was, I've been working for probably 2 or 3 years with a fellow named Vitor Mondo down in Brazil, Sao Paulo, Brazil. And he approached me about, could I use strategic doing to build an innovation zone outside Sao Paulo across four cities outside Sao Paulo. These cities have ag assets, they have agricultural assets, digital agricultural assets, but they all compete against one another. And so he, through his personality and through his skill in strategic doing, he developed this innovation zone, which has been quite successful. It's actually expanded to another city. And now what he's doing is he's telling that story across Latin America. And on Monday, he assembled a team that he's been working with or talking to, talking about digital agriculture across Latin America and building a network across Latin America and the Caribbean states. So your point, the internet enables us to do this, and now we can think in broad scale around large scale ideas that can scale relatively quickly. Because we have a discipline and we can teach this, and all the advantages that you have that we didn't have when we started out. I mean, Oklahoma City took about 4 years before we saw any kind of progress. Now you can see it very quickly. It's exciting.
And the thing is, like in Korea, many people like just heard about strategic doing, but we are not actually like that much familiar with that and concept of strategic doing, and many people want to know how strategic doing can work for realization of doughnut economics idea. And we have a lot of diverse groups and networks who wanted to make their works be sustainable. And I think that strategic doing is really useful. And I read your book. I thought it was really amazing. It's just like you really like make it in easy way. And I know that it's not that easy when we are actually doing it. So what I just want to know is like the network that can be like sometimes really competitive. So it's really hard to be like collaborative. So actually it's really happening in Korea as well. We have a lot of assets, but we cannot make that assets be available because the network cannot be collaborate with each other. And rather they just compete each other with that to get the same asset. The assets can be, people and the funding as well. So
yeah, it's interesting.
So
Go
I
ahead.
want to yes.
No, I think it's interesting that what strategic doing teaches us, I think, is that we have to come up with new skills and behaviors to make the recombinant innovation around knowledge actually work. I mean, because what we're doing is we're actually connecting a lot of tacit knowledge, knowledge that's in your head. It's not in a book. And we don't share tacit knowledge with people we don't trust. And so this whole dynamic of building a process or a routine, set of routines in which you can start to build trust at scale among people who are willing to experiment with this. That's a totally new, that's kind of new. And most people are approaching their situation with the mindset of a resource-based economy, which is a declining curve, fixed pie idea. If I'm gonna succeed, then I have to beat Gayle. I have to. It's a zero-sum competitive game, and this completely misses the point of what we're dealing with here, which is knowledge assets, which are generate increasing returns. And it requires a new set of skills, behavior, and as Gayle is talking about, new set of arrangements at the local government level, at the citizen level. But the good news is that those new arrangements are not hard. They're not costly. You can learn these skills. You can practice the skills. You can master the skills. So it's now a scalable discipline. You can scale it. And, I've taught it in Chinese. I'm sure that we could teach generate materials in Korean for people. We have a set of materials in Chinese and Spanish and German. But it is a cross-cultural discipline. But it has to be situated in the cultural context. In other words, it's not the kind of thing where I can come in and tell you how to do this in Korea. I can teach people in Korea how the discipline works, and they can localize it for the situation they have. So that's what we're doing in Australia, New Zealand, Ecuador, did this in Brazil. Because the local context is everything. I mean, that's the whole name of the game. If you can't understand the local context, you're not going to be successful at any of this. So I do think it's possible, and I'm happy to talk to you about how that might work, or Gayle can talk to you about that and how that's going to work. We have Joe is working on this, and anyway, we've got a bunch of people working on it, so we're happy to expand the network. That's for sure. Would that be helpful, Min, if we set up a call and just explored how we might do strategic doing in Korea, or how we might?
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, like many people, I look forward to doing that one. So. Okay.
Well, typically the way you can learn something from with how we did this with Victor. Typically what we suggest is that you just get a small group of willing participants. Doesn't have to be big. This is what we call a core team. Typically 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Not 7 is the biggest core team I've ever worked with, and you learn, and that's a network that's willing to commit sometime an hour, 2 hours a week over a period of a year to learn and practice and develop the skills, and then you go through a training that teaches you all of the 10 skills in the context of a challenge that you're facing. So it's not an abstract, okay, we're going to go through this course, and we're trying as much as we can to design the courses, design the learning experience around a challenge that you have. And because that's going to be the most meaningful way to do this. That's how we're doing this and how we design it, and so that's it. So I'm happy to spend a little bit of time like I have with Victor and just sort of say, well, here's how I think you can do this by connecting having a big idea, but then starting with small steps.
Yeah.
That's why we
Thank
call
you.
it big easy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, thank you.
You have to have, that's the misnomer. We had this in Ecuador, where the business leaders said, hey, you're trying to tell us about transforming the economy in Ecuador, but you're focusing us on little small projects. And I mean, these two things don't get to go together. Big economy and small projects. How does this happen? And what they're missing is the dynamic growth, right? So you're always focused on doing the doable and small projects, but as the network becomes more productive and skilled and grows, the definition of what's a small project grows.
Oh.
So you can take on more and more sophisticated projects. You're always doing the doable, but the doable might start out like this, but then it goes to this, then it starts going like this, all because of the network effect. It's really the network effect taking hold.
That's really helpful. Like the reason why I got interested in strategic doing is because Gayle told me like donut economic is what we are aiming for, and the strategic doing let us know how can we get there. And what you just told me is exactly how strategic doing works for it. So.
So tell me more about you. I mean, tell maybe everybody on the call already knows this, but I don't. So if everybody can if that's okay for everyone, I'd like to learn more about what Min is doing. So
I just finished my PhD in public administration, and my interested in like civil society thing as a governance and grassroots policy making. And I'm just recently initiated Yongin Doughnut Economics Coalition, which is called Y Doughnut. So I wanted to change my reason into donut economics, and I really didn't know like how can I get there. And I reached Gayle and asked advice to her, and she introduced me strategic doing. So that's why we are here.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you, Gayle. Gayle's been great. She's a tireless advocate, I think, of our work. So I really appreciate that.
And you can see others like Hannah and Hajung, and I told them about like strategic doing a lot. Even I don't know much about it, so but I know that's work. So.
Well, thank you. It's when you really think about it, it's applied common sense. I mean, it's really not, but it is a discipline, and it's kind of like a discipline of, learning how to play the piano or learning how to do a sport or something like that. It's a set of skills, it's a set of cognitive skills, thinking skills. And and so you learn these skills and you practice them. I continue to practice them, and you're not going to be good. Nobody's good at all 10 of them. Nobody's perfect at all 10 of them. And that's why you want to have a cognitively diverse team, people who think differently, because those are the most productive teams, because they look at a complex challenge and they look at it from different perspectives. And if they trust each other, that's the big thing. They're willing to share those perspectives. This is what I'm seeing. This is, and that's how you generate solutions to these complex problems, because it's a continuous process of experimentation. And working with Eric, what we've learned is that finance, the government, or any kind of development finance is not set up that way. It's not set up to fund an ongoing process of experimentation and learning. It's set up in a linear fashion. I will give you this money, you provide this. And unfortunately, that's not how the challenges present themselves. The complex challenges don't present themselves as linear problems that we can tear apart and solve. It's not the way that these problems work. And so part of what what I would encourage you to do is to think about, okay, can I get a small group of people together, small, trusted friends, and learn this and master it. And then, we have a path, a professional path for you to follow. You can become a fellow of the Institute if you want. You can become a practitioner. You can become a fellow of the Institute. Because we want practitioners to be able to understand both the theory and the practice of strategic doing, and we want our fellows to be able to teach that. So the fellows course is really a doctoral level course on the theory and practice of creating value in these open networks. How do you do that? The other thing that's exciting to me is watching the fellows. They're coming in and they're continuously innovating about, well, how could we do this and how could we? So, Gayle, that how Joe developed the game board, this game, right? Brilliant. It was brilliant because it's a brilliant way to introduce people to the concepts. So this is a discipline that's continuously evolving. It's continuously changing. And so my goal is to get as many people around the world, your generation of leaders, to realize that this is a far more productive way and it's far cheaper, better, faster, more fun. It's more fun to do than typical stuff.
Yeah. There's a really good comment in the chat about how children are taught in schools to be competitive, which I think is really important.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well.
I think young children are born like that. They play together really, really well, but we educate them out of it in schools and everything after that. So we've got to undo that a little bit. I found talking to people about Lego often helps. You can either get a Lego pack and you can build it according to the instructions exactly like it is on the picture on the box, or you can just throw a whole pile of Lego in a pile and play with it and come up with all sorts of things. And they understand that idea, and it's going back to that, that sort of playful way of working together where you're not worried about getting it right or being the best or any of that sort of stuff. So we've got to change the way we educate our kids, I think.
Well, it's, strategic doing is embedded in American pragmatism, the idea of pragmatism, which is the idea of learning by doing, essentially. And one of the key thought leaders in American pragmatism, of course, is John Dewey. And Dewey felt very strongly about experiential learning by doing, and when you combine this experiential learning with experiential learning in groups, because we learn better in groups, not just as sole. And so our system, or at least in the US, our system is all focused on the individual student, measuring their progress and all that kind of stuff. And they're missing out on the experiential learning in groups. And so at Purdue right now, what we're doing is we're coming up with what we call a challenge lab. But we're going to position it next to the university, but outside the university, because the university is still focused on the individual and on the individual, achievement, right? And the exact comment that was made in the chat, and what we need to be able to do is learn and figure out how to learn and adapt in groups and in teams. And so this challenge lab is designed to be next to Purdue, affiliated with Purdue in some way. We're not sure how yet, but it's not going to be part of the academic structure of Purdue, because then it'll just get chewed up and it won't work. Oh, we've been joined by another member of the team here. Good.
Sleepy eyes.
Might be a little late or something. Yeah.
It's early morning here. And
Yeah,
for there.
really.
Yeah. So, how long have we got? 5 minutes. So in the resources, Min and I did have a document with lots of links to the work that we've done. And so the best way to follow up on this is to go and have a look at those links. You can contact us through that. I mean, you can contact us through Deal, through LinkedIn, through everything. There's a link to Ed's LinkedIn there and the Strategic Doing Institute. So it's a matter of having a look at, see what's there and reaching out and asking questions. And the way I do everything is to try and make as much public as possible, because it allows people, it's cheap as well. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to have all these one-on-one talks. It's just there and people can access it as they want to, but they can see the inner workings rather than the polished final product, I think is important. But
I think this is an important idea here, which is that transparency in these open networks, which is what you're doing. Transparency is actually your friend. It's your friend. So that was the whole, when I went to Purdue, the whole idea was, if this is successful, we are going to open source it. In other words, we're not gonna license this. We will learn how to teach it, and we will create learning experiences for people. But that's how trust starts to build. I mean, again, the notion that you flip the old script. The old script was, I'm going to keep my information unless I release it, right? That's just kind of the stakeholder mentality. But people operating in networks realize that that connection, relationships, capital is really what's valuable. And that's fostered by that's the transparency. It becomes kind of like the fertilizer to the living system. Yeah, that's very smart, Gayle. Yeah.
Yeah. I think even in the small activities you do, building trust and relationships should be the outcome of one of the outcomes of everything that you do. And,
it's interesting. We were taught. I had the fellows course this morning. We're teaching a new group of fellows about this, and a lot of it's around this whole notion of trust. How do you build trust? How do you reestablish broken trust? All of that. And trust is an emergent quality of human relationships. And so if we can create new routines in which people are making small commitments, again, not huge commitments, but small commitments, and doing that on a regular basis, that's how trust bonds form. That's how they form. And so I talk to practitioners. When I teach practitioners, I say, you should end up every meeting with, what's the next step? What's the next step I can take? What's the next step you can take? Because now we're translating our words into actually doing something. And it can be as simple as, hey, check out the resources and call us if you've got questions, or, so ending everything with a next step is really part of, it's a very smart idea.
Okay, so 1 minute to go. Anyone else got anything they need to know urgently? Well, we'll
I just want to confirm, because I'm still not clear. I will find the resources on the deal page for the Donut Day somewhere there.
Yeah, on the platform that you use to join, there's some tabs at the top, and one says resources, and the resources for all of the different sessions are on there. And I think at the bottom there's a link there that says resources. If you can't find it, contact us, and just email me. I can put it. Actually, I can probably share.
There's a link now there's a link in chat.
Okay.
So one of the things, Gayle, I want to thank you and Min for really shepherding this along. I have long been a big advocate of donut economics. I really think Kate Rayworth really has figured this out. Very, very smart. And it fits in the same area that strategic doing does, which is in this meso level between macro and microeconomics. And if we can focus and learn in this level and keep ourselves focused in this level, the other levels will transform. Don't worry about it. Those things will make adjustments. Policy will follow good ideas. And this is why I think the integration of donut economics and strategic doing was just really, I really appreciate this. Really, very, thank you. So I just wanted
I thought they just fitted together so naturally when I came across them, and
I do, and I have to
yeah,
I have to say Donut Days and what Kate Rayworth is doing is just it's mind blowing. It's just great. I mean, it's just, you know, what she's doing is just great. It's just it's exciting.
yeah.
But
And this session, I mean, this session has come across. It's just come out of me being interested in donut economics, Min being interested, and then we had that connection. It was Min's suggestion. Oh, why don't we do something for global, you know, for the online day for the Global Donut Day? And this has just grown out of it. It's been quite amazing to watch how it came. But you can never predict opportunities. You've got to sort of be just open and watching, ready to grasp them.
Well, you know, whatever you and Min come up with and how I can be supportive, how the Institute can be supportive, just let us know. We're you know, I know we've got people in this. I'm interested, of course, in this, but you know, it really is important for the next generation of leaders to just, you know, you're the leaders we've been waiting for. I mean, you know, let's go and let's do something really fun, because I do think it's time now to just seize the reins and go. See, you know, just go.
I think so. Yeah. The documents, the links to those documents are all in the chat.
Yeah.
The deep links as well. So if you take those before we sign off, I'm not sure whether we're going to get kicked off because we're the last session of the day.
Yeah, very last one.
That's right. And I think I don't know, is it very late night in the UK for the deal people?
And a very late night in South Africa too.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
I'm
Aaron.
saying goodbye. It's time to get some chateau. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you very much for coming.
Okay.
Thanks.
I enjoyed. Bye bye.
Okay. Well, thanks. And hope to see some of you online somewhere.
Yeah.
Feel free to
reach
contact on
you
LinkedIn.
again.
Yeah.
Reach out.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Gayle and Min, thank you so much. I really want to thank you. I mean, it's just that's inspiring what you're doing. It really is. And Gayle, your intuition is spot on. It really is. And as soon as I read Kate Rayworth's book, I said, wow, this is a model. What I see happening is the emergence of regional economies globally. And there's a lot of reasons why that's happening or why that can happen, but it's how we address these complex challenges, democratic challenges, the civic issues that donut economics addresses, mostly the environmental problems, the environmental challenges, the fact that we're exceeding our planetary boundaries. These will be solved at the regional level. And it's when we connect regions together that we'll get global impact. And that's why what Victor is doing with connecting teams across Latin America in ag innovation, in digital agriculture, that's going to be really cool. I really got something. And the good news is, again, you work with the willing. You don't try to force fit this. You don't try to, you're not trying to force fit anything. You're working with the willing partners. Every every transformation I've ever been involved with has always started out with 2 people, 6 people, 5 people, 7 people. It doesn't start out with 100 people. It starts out very small, but it grows.
Mm. Yeah, it's that scaling out rather than big projects or scaling up.
Well, it's a
down.
complex living system. Yeah, so it's growing. Yeah. Well, hey, thank
Yeah.
you very much. I hope I contributed. I didn't want to pull too many people off into my little universe over here.
No,
Because
it was good, Ed. Yeah.
it's important that the spotlight shines on you and Min, because you put this together.
I think marrying the two is very important. You've
Okay,
got to have
great.
the practical and the theoretical together. If you lose one of them, then nothing happens.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, that's what we're talking in the fellows course that we've got 3 of them going now. And the fellows course, as I mentioned, is a doctoral level course, which immerses you initially in complexity science, just sort of not in real detail, but sort of understanding some of the concepts here. Understanding some of the concepts of knowledge, how knowledge is generated in practice and tacit knowledge and all of that. And then into the theory, the multiple streams of research that support each one of the 10 rules, so that you can see how this integrates. And then the other dimension of the course is learning how to teach it. What the pedagogy, how do I teach this? What can I do to teach this in New Zealand? What can I do to teach this in Ireland? Because the pedagogy varies a bit, but the same core principles apply, of learning by doing, challenge-centric, working in groups, not working individually, but working in groups, and all of those things.
But that's really interesting, because I'm really interested in like bridging the gap between like theory and the actual practice. Because in Korea, like I'm majoring in civil society things, but like the theory of civil society works and the actual work is really different. So there's a huge gap.
Yes, that's right. And so the dimension that we have to think about is, how is knowledge validated, and how do we create it, and how do we validate it and make it sure that it's, and so the dominant model that we've had in Western societies, and to a certain extent Asian economies have also followed this model, which is that the source of knowledge, new knowledge, is in the university. That's where the new knowledge gets created, and it then migrates over to a complex problem, and you apply the knowledge that's been validated over here. What Donald Schoen was talking about in the 1980s was when you deal with these complex problems, then the knowledge comes in engaging the problem. It's when you engage in the problem that you generate the tacit knowledge from your experience. And so now what you're focused on is taking practitioner knowledge and validating it to rigorous scholarly standards.
Oh.
And so that's what strategic doing did. That's what I did. So I took knowledge that I was generating over here, and then took it back over here, elevated it to scholarly standards, and explained why existing scholarship supports this model. Why does it actually work? And
yes.
And that's a different approach. This is what Donald Schoen was talking about in the 1980s, but it's not been easy to do it in a university. It's just not easy to do it that way. It's high risk, and so young scholars don't, they don't want to, they can do action research, but it's more of a risky, it's a little riskier. So they tend
we're being asked to leave because we've already gone 10 minutes over, but we can catch up anytime.
Yeah.
Well, Gayle and Min, I would love to continue the conversation.
We will. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You just, remind me of everything.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.